Frumess talks about Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Let's all talk about Halloween, Silver Shamrock. This film is a Shudder exclusive premiere or something. It's called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. And I really, really love this. This was the first watch of this season that just really blew me away, man. I mean, I just really friggin' enjoyed it. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is a fantastic example of taking timeless literature and building your own unique story perspective on top of its framework. It works so well because these frameworks are universal and represent different facets of the human experience. Case in point, this is a retelling of the Frankenstein mythology, except it's told through the eyes of an angry black girl, basically. And her Frankenstein's monster is actually her brother Chris, who is, I guess, for the lack of a better term, he's involved with gangs. Maybe he's a gangbanger, something like that, and he's murdered. And she's stealing bodies and bringing him to life. And the production design is great. The way that the monster looks great. The brother Chris is the monster, looks great. And like I said, you know, it takes a lot of Frankenstein. It takes Frankenstein tropes. It takes Frankenstein tropes, but it's not going beat by the Frankenstein story. Instead, the writing, it's almost like it's the writing is about the writing has a lot to do with, you know, the Black experience in America in certain, you know, lower what am I trying to say here? Lower income neighborhoods, right? Some urban neighborhoods, you know, that sort of thing. And it's a POV in horror that we rarely ever see, let alone with Frankenstein mixed in. So I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was great. It felt super fresh in that kind of way. When it comes to horror and science fiction, Frankenstein might be the greatest framework of them all. For the live 31 Days of Halloween review and discussion of Frank Henenlotter's Frankenhooker, Bob Rose and I discussed the notion of the Frankenstein trope. It's sort of an informal set of story criteria that qualifies a movie as being Frankensteinian, including films like She's All That and Jurassic Park. That's right. She's All That follows the Frankenstein trope, as does Jurassic Park. So last year, Bob and I, as we were talking about Frankenhooker, that you could see that on the channel if you want, we talked for about 90 minutes and we started, we just went off the rails just talking about how, like, you know, Frankenstein itself is its own story engine. You know what I mean? The idea, so in order for something to follow the Frankenstein trope, it has to be the following. Creator creates creation. Creation doesn't do what creator wants them to do, or sorry, the creator has a specific, you know, idea or notion for what they want their creation to be and do, and the creation doesn't follow. The creation always rebels. That's what you need in order to have a Frankenstein story. And of course, things don't go well for what's her name in this movie? Vicaria. And, you know, I like that they use the name Vicaria because it kind of throws you off a little bit. You think that they could have gone with Victoria. Victoria would be the on the nose one, and instead they're going with Vicaria, which is a little bit more subtle, a little bit more hidden in terms of you know, trying to say. And, you know, in this story, the father talks about how his descendant was owned by somebody with the initial F, and was branded with the initial F as the result. So making it sound like, you know, the descendant of the father of Vicaria is in fact was in fact enslaved by Frankenstein himself, Victor Frankenstein himself. So you know, it's great, man. It's really great. Vicaria is a really interesting character. there's a lot of Jeffrey Combs Herbert West in her. Okay. Here, let me just read what it says. The monster looks amazing, and the SFX gore is very effective. The ending is so powerful. It really, really is. And the lessons almost come full circle until they don't. And the lessons are always, it's kind of like the Pet Cemetery thing. Sometimes dead is better. It's like when part of the Frankenstein trope is, you're playing, it's man trying to be God and creating something with or using science in a way that they don't truly grasp or master or have the discipline. That's the key. And that's what Jurassic Park really kind of explores, that with Ian Malcolm talking to John Hammond and being like, you don't have the discipline and you didn't earn the power. You just, you figure out how to do it, and you didn't take any consideration to what it really means and this, that, and the other. All these really big sort of, concepts that you have to grapple with when, you have such, power in science to do something like resurrect the dead or create new life from dead tissue. So the ending, I don't want to spoil it, but the ending is, bringing us towards this theme of like, science, life, and it's life is a mystery, and it's perhaps not meant for humans to master or to solve. And then they totally just break that. They smash that into a million pieces with the ending, and it's great. I'm glad that they kind of did it, because it's to not have do it, to have gone full circle, which also would have been fine because that's the story of Frankenstein, but to have gone full circle would have been kind of what's the word I'm thinking about? It would have just been like like paint by numbers, and instead they didn't. They did something daring and fresh. There's a lot of Jeffrey Combs Herbert West in the main character, Vicaria, especially in a scene that felt like a great nod to what happens early in Reanimator, when West and Dr. Carl Hill, played by the brilliant David Gale, bump heads over a cadaver cranium during a lesson. Dr. Hill is describing how you peel the skull back, the skin off the skull, and cut open the skull and weigh the brain. And Herbert West keeps breaking pencils, and Hill has that line. He says, "Mr. West, I suggest you get a pen." And we get a scene very similar to that. And remember, I was talking about how this is kind of written from the Black perspective, Black POV. In Angry Black Girl, the scene is void of pencil snapping like in Reanimator, and we are given a POV into racial microaggression and the white women tears Karening against our lead. So she's having the argument about proving her teacher wrong about the fundamentals of what they know about life and death. And security is called on her. She's not being, she's just having a passionate discussion. And because she's angry and also happens to be Black, she has security called on her, and she has to be escorted out of the classroom. It's absolutely crazy. But, again, showing what, the Black experience is that perhaps, say, others might not be aware of. And so that's what I really did appreciate. Bringing something new to the story, of bringing a unique original story and building it on top of Frankenstein. My only wish for this film, and probably why I didn't give it a full 5 stars, I would have given it a full 5 stars. My only wish for this film and its story was to give us more pathos and screen time with Chris the monster. His arc feels undernourished. We really don't get a sense of who Chris is. Why is he a monster? What makes him monstrous besides his appearance? He keeps murdering people. He keeps, snapping their necks and stuff. We see that he's sort of uncontrollable. He's ungovernable. That's the word I was trying to think of when I was talking about Frankenstein. The notion of what makes Frankenstein, the hook, it's not just bringing something to life, but trying to govern life, trying to control and govern life like you are a god, and finding that it is uncontrollable. So I kind of feel like we didn't really get to see any pathos from the POV of Chris the monster. And that's so key. Part of what makes Frankenstein work is that, there's humanity within the monster, right? That's the irony. On the outside, I look like this hideous monster, but on the inside, I'm human just like you. So that was missing immensely. We got to see a little bit of that. Um, but not really. It's funny. The movie tells us that he is a monster because we call him a monster. And I feel too that the filmmaker treated him more like a monster lurking in the shadows instead of showing us the humanity of Chris in his new rebirth or in his previous life. Meaning we didn't get any flashbacks to who he was before he died. That would have helped in sort of giving us more pathos. The only thing we get fragments through his pregnant wife. He has a wife who's pregnant with their child, whose name turns out to be Victor, Aisha. She kind of like alludes to him and what he was about, but it wasn't enough for me. I needed more. But listen, either way, I highly, highly recommend this one. Probably one of my number one recommendations. Okay. I have two number one recommendations, I would say, in this first week. And that would be one of them. This is streaming on Shudder, as I mentioned. So make sure you check that out.